think a glance, now you're walking right past. But I mean, miss, don't need to be so rude, I'm loving how you dance. I say, oh, you're coming back to me. It's a disaster feel. Like, are you really feeling apathy? I got the moves, make you come running after me. Cause baby, oh my, well it's unfair. Looking like that, make a gentleman stare. Show me how you work, love. Will you make it hot, make it last, make it feel like I don't even need to think hard. After that, girl, I'm never going back. I'm addicted to the way that you can love me and then walk on.
I'ma have you naked by the end of this song. Yeah. Jhameel is an alternative pop artist from the Bay Area known for his signature sharp blackface paint, his skill in 14 instruments, his unique and untamed spirit. I could go on and on and on. But one of the most interesting things is Jhameel came to UC Berkeley on a military scholarship, which is very unique to a lot of other musicians that I might have talked to. We chat for a bit about his upbringing and the sensitive, unfair topic of discussion that one would have with a veteran. I treaded lightly, but I think I myself and my listeners will gain some perspective about him, which in terms gives us perspective of the music he creates. But the focus is on the music, and he's an artist who is truly just getting better and better, and the best part is he's still doing it on his own terms. His new body of work is on iTunes, Spotify. You know, you can visit the website page of this podcast, and I'll include the new video for Knock It Down, which was produced by Shy Boy, written by Jhameel and Shy Boy. And as always, if you like the show, like and subscribe. Drop me some feedback. Shoot me an email with remarks, emojis, suggestions, concerns. I would love to hear from you. Visit bedroombeethovens.com, and you can always listen to this podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts can be listened to. All the apps and gateways and outlets, or whatever the cool kids are listening to. All right, party people. Episode 7 of the podcast. I'm your boy Cello, and
it's the Bedroom Beethoven Podcast.
so early too. You got your morning coffee?
Oh yeah, no, I honestly I slept in today. I've been exhausted.
Sorry to interrupt that. For some reason, I thought you were like Mark Wahlberg, where it's like breakfast at 3 a.m. and then you work out, and then there's another meal, shower, snack, and golf all before 10 a.m.
No, man, it's Sunday. Mark Wahlberg's got to relax.
Cool, man. Well, thanks again for being here. And well, really cool. Just coincidentally, I talked to Hoodie Allen on Friday. He said, "What's up?"
Oh, no way! That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, he was debuting a new video, and I was in the chat, and I name dropped you, and yeah, and little trip down memory lane. That video y'all got is like 20 million hits on YouTube.
Oh yeah, that was on the top. That was on the top 10 Billboard for a little bit.
Ooh wee, yeah, that's pretty crazy. We've reconnected, and what's really cool is like the first time, if I recall, I went through Ryan, I believe, and I think it's cool that like after 6-7 years, I can just ping you and you answer me directly, and it has nothing to do with how big you've gotten or how many hit records or Twitter followers you have. You always believed in connecting with your fans and opening up an artist relationship with your fans, and this is why when I started this podcast, I thought of you.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, I mean, having a fun conversation is always nice, you know?
I think the only thing I knew about you is that you grew up in Minnesota, and I kind of wanted to start there.
Sure.
So growing up, here's what I know. The only thing I know is that your dad was a musician, violin,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't sure if it was like a musical household and like, you know, where they would play classical music all day. But were your parents pushing you into music at a young age?
No, I think they were trying to deter me away from music because my dad, from what I've been learning over time, because he, you know, a lot of immigrant families don't really like to talk about their history, but you know, a little prodding, and basically what happened is he was in South Korea during war times, and his family sort of pushed him into going to the United States at a very young age, all alone. And luckily, he was very talented violin. He ended up being very successful, and he was also in the musical Fame. If you know that, it's like an old American musical. You could find him. He's like the only Asian violinist in one of the intro shots. But he hated it because he felt like it sort of ruined his life. Uprooted him from what he knew as home, and sort of made his childhood a little chaotic. So when he found out that I was trying to do music, it was kind of like a little bit of fear for him. But I mean, I never chose to do music. I kind of just got into it because that's just what I do. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like you wake up and what do you want to do? I want to make music. You know?
Yeah, it's for me. It's like since the last time we talked, I married a woman who's Korean.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you, man. We have a little girl, and lo and
How?
behold, we put her in violin too. And I was just, it wasn't my, she's kind of like a tiger mom about it, but it's
Yeah,
almost like
yeah,
this
yeah.
rite of passage for young Asian kids is like you're gonna learn an instrument, and
It's got to be violin or cello or piano.
one of those. Yeah, it has to be one of those. So it's always fascinating when I hear like people that fall into music, and it's not necessarily a positive aspect from a parental viewpoint, because I I look at it like music can help develop the right brain and push creativity in our kids ultimately, but
Yeah.
will it lead to a fruitful career?
Mm.
That's always the struggle.
Yeah, I think I think like either way, it's good. You know, whether or not it's a career or just something nice that you have in your life. I think it's sort of like learning a second language. You know, like might as well do it.
And read some stuff on you, and I know about the military phase of your life. Are you okay with going into that? Because I want to explain to people how this works culturally. Because if my mom said, you're joining the military, I think I had some leeway into the course of my life, whether it was a period of rebellion or me figuring out my own life path.
uh,
Obviously, I don't know your dad and your mom, but I imagine he had a profound impact on you in terms of your values growing up because of you joining the military.
I think for my dad, it was a little bit of a fantasy, a little bit, because he was super into you know secret agents and CIA and stuff like that. And I think he kind of like had like this fantasy of getting me into that thing. He made me learn a lot of languages when I was a kid. Sort of sort of tried to breed me into that path. Ironically, I became a musician. But yeah, it was definitely a little cultural. It was also financial. You know, they paid for my college, which was a huge thing. Um, and it ended up being just mostly a formative experience for me to something for me to be able to conjure inspiration from. I think.
And was this the army?
Yeah, it was the army. Yeah.
Actually, I tried to join the army. I even got so far as to go down to MEPS, and they do
Uh-huh.
this thing where you strip down and you have to walk like a duck on the heels of your foot. Did you have to do that?
I didn't have to do that, but I've heard of that.
Yeah, so I did that, and I got all the way to the end, and then they were
Uh,
like, "Hey, man, you have asthma. You can't join the military." And I was like, "You made me walk like a duck in my boxer shorts, and you're telling me this?" But
it's the biggest frat in the world, so they'll try to haze anyone as much as they can. Um, but what year was that that they denied you because of asthma?
that was 2007, maybe
Uh,
2006, 2007. Yeah,
yeah,
and
I bet you would have easily gotten in had it been a couple years later. Because I'm colorblind and they don't allow colorblind people to enter the army, but I had a waiver because they were sort of desperate for new people.
well, here's the thing. Like, so my recruiter knew I had asthma, and she told me to lie. Uh,
uh, yeah,
and
yeah.
I just had this come to Jesus moment where
Uh,
I was in front of the medical professional, and I could have
yeah,
lied and got
you
in.
do it. Yeah,
Or
no, I know how you feel. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
but the scary thing is like, what if I was in basic training and I had trouble breathing, and then I would have got a dishonorable discharge, and my recruiter would have been separated by me. She didn't care about my future, and that would have been following me my whole
That
life.
stuff
So
happens all the time. I remember we were in Fort Knox in Kentucky. It was like 105 degrees outside, like no joke. And the guy that I was doing, we were doing navigation training, which means you're just taking a point on a map with a compass and looking for it in like their field or whatever. And the guy that I was with, he started getting heat stroke, and he literally like told me like, don't tell anybody because I'll get kicked out. And he was trying to go for a military career. And I was so tired. I was like, sure, whatever, man. But in retrospect, I should have told somebody. But luckily, he survived.
Yeah, the dangers that and what's crazy is so back when I first interviewed you, I had like this publication, and I interviewed this actress named Bai Ling, she was kind of big at the time. I don't know if you know her, but she opened up to me about her memories in the army regarding brainwashing and sexual abuse. And obviously, I don't want to get into the weeds about that. That's a heavy subject, but I just feel like there needs to be documentaries about this stuff because, one, it's not obvious knowledge to a lot of people, and two, I bet we could uncover like a lot more rough stuff and bring that stuff to light.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, the racism too. It's like crazy. Yeah. So, the sexual abuse is ridiculous too, for sure. Yeah, there should be a documentary, but it's a massive weaponized government organization. It's a tough thing to poke your head into.
Yeah, it's one thing to like ostracize R. Kelly. It's another to ostracize the
Yeah, R.
United
Kelly
States
doesn't have
military.
an army of weapons and nuclear power.
Yeah, might not be a good idea. So, but when you joined the military, you already had a big interest in music, or did that kind of come? Like, did you have to put that on the back burner when you enlisted? Because if so, you must have been crawling out of your skin the entire time.
Yeah, I think what my plan was to just get my time done as quickly as possible.
So you didn't want to be a 20-year. You knew you just wanted to get enough to cover education.
Yeah, I just wanted to get my college education paid for.
Okay.
And maybe get some experiences. Which that happened, but no, I don't regret doing it. I definitely when you're in it, when you're in basic training, man, that just every day is like at least 20-hour days. So I thought it was just gonna be, man, this is gonna be forever. But once you get done with that, it's not too bad at all.
So then you took music seriously probably shortly after you got out. What around age was that?
So like 20.
So at 20, did you already make a conscious decision to stay away from labels? Was this like I want to control my destiny from here on out?
It's hard to say what I was thinking because I just wanted to own what I made. There were already hints of major labels and sort of the central music industry not really working out the way it used to. And I definitely had an idea to stick for the long run. I wasn't trying to just like cash in and get out. I was trying to do things right for a long, long time. So just signing away the most of the rights of I have a publisher and stuff, but I stayed away from labels because I met these guys. They flew me around and just talking to them. I follow my gut. They just sounded shady. Like I didn't want to do business with these people. So I just follow my instincts. It wasn't super conscious or educated decision.
Well, but I want to give you a lot more credit than you might think because 10 years ago, releasing your albums for free so you could sell merch and garner bigger audiences, that was like guerrilla marketing. It was almost unheard of at that time. So that strategy, either it stemmed from something or you're like a musical genius.
I think I was more of a product of my time because when I first started, that was when the housing crisis happened, and I couldn't expect people to buy albums like for someone they don't know. So I was like, hey, just take them and come to my shows. Like to see what happens. I was kind of just adapting to the environment, but.
You mentioned speak a lot of language, you play a lot of instruments. Dave Grohl did that from the Foo Fighters, did that really cool thing where he played a song for 23 minutes on 7 different instruments. And I would love like kind of to see like a concept of you doing like a 46-minute song on 14 instruments or something, like take it to the next level.
That'd be tight. Dave Grohl is amazing. I mean, he's like at that living legend stage where he could just do whatever he wants.
Yeah, well, here's the kicker. You know, you're not tied to a label, so you could do whatever you want.
That's true, but I'm also I am tied to sort of the attention span of the audience base.
That's true.
Whereas
That's
David
true.
Grohl, people will pay attention to what he's doing because he is David Grohl. Whereas I still have to serve the very short attention span of this of my generation and the later generations and previous generations. I feel like will listen to anything that's good, if that makes sense.
Well, in the present time, I think we're living in arguably the most important time in history right now between like you know, Elon Musk and AI and these tech
Yeah.
innovations. You know, we're building like a pretty brilliant future. So let's kind of talk about the future of music industry. Are you content? Are you happy with uh, Spotify, for example, taking such a big cut of your earnings?
I love Spotify because I mean people say they don't pay that much. They definitely have lower cuts than they used to, but for me, I think being prolific is the most important aspect of like the streaming services because you just have to make really good stuff all the time. It's I don't want to say it's a numbers game because that'll detract away from the quality of your individual work. But if you could sort of structure it, it's tough because you have to structure your life to have constant inspiration because nobody wants to hear uninspired songs, and you have to have like a method of production that you could just express yourself freely. I don't know. I think it's pushing the musicians, pushing people who really understand, um, the process at a core level.
I would be shocked to hear if you haven't heard of cryptocurrency yet. Have
Oh
you?
yeah, of
Have you?
course.
Okay. Well, there are companies like Ujo Music and Music Coin, which are blockchain based shared infrastructure for creative industries.
Oh, interesting.
In 2015, I interviewed Imogen Heap, and she
Mhm.
told me that she's using cryptocurrencies to usher in a modern music supply chain that
Okay.
operates on the backbone of transparent payments. So, what this means is, oh, and also I interviewed RAC, who's using like
I love that guy.
cryptocurrency stores to demonstrate that you can be a part of a creator portal where artists can publish, license, and get compensation for their work on cryptocurrency platforms. So, deep breath. First off, you know, I know this isn't a techie podcast, but I know a little something about it. So basically, Jhameel, your vision a decade or so ago to like bypass the labels and release your music online, I think now it has kind of joined the hive mind. And in terms of technology adoption rates, it hasn't quite crossed the chasm, but I think the same principles are there. And this is like an alternative to Spotify. So instead of getting half a cent for a stream, you can get like as high as 11 cents per stream.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's
Yeah.
no need to register copyright. There's no need to sign with a publisher to enforce the payment of someone using your creative work. So if
Mm-hmm.
your work is original, you can simply upload your track and get it published.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, you know, it would be kind of cool, like maybe after this interview, like you fell down the rabbit hole and you checked out these things because I
Yeah.
kind of feel like it would be a great partnership between you and these companies, and you could kind of usher in a new era of technology music in the future, and of course, make your pockets a little fatter.
Yeah. Everyone wants to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's no ticket to Mars or anything, but it's something, you know.
So, was it music cryptocurrency? What is it?
So there's two companies that I really like. One's Ujo Music, which is UJO Music, and they're not a sponsor. I just think it would be like really cool partnership. And then
Mm-hmm.
one is Music Coin, all one word.
Oh, so RAC is like a huge part of this.
He's pretty big. I think he released his last album strictly on that platform,
So it's like a
and
streaming platform.
it's just like Spotify, except it kind of takes out the middleman. And like I said, it takes your ideology of when you were 20 years old and how you wanted to be a musician. And I think now it's like a hive mind, like a mycelia, where it's grasped so many technologists and realized that Spotify is kind of unfair in how they treat artists. And this is just more like a fair trade act for musical
Oh, they
artists.
pay using Ethereum. Interesting.
Yes, yes,
I've traded Ethereum a
you
long time
have.
ago,
Oh,
a while ago, like a couple of months ago. Before I bought it at like 250 and then sold it at 400 and then it went to like 1,000. But now it's at like 150 or something like that.
yeah, yeah. I'm a holder. I'm trying not to, because I don't have a crystal ball. So it's like, you know, if I bought at 800, I don't want to sell at 400. Hopefully, it goes to like 3,000, 4,000. So
Yeah, that's yeah. Nobody has that crystal ball. That's the tough part about it.
Might be worth checking out. And I really think that the future is bright for the music industry, and you don't really need labels. You really don't need labels. And
I mean, labels are trying to figure it out too. You know, they're on the same page now. They just have a little more I mean, like, there are some labels that have all the big hitters. Like there's there's a label that has like Bruno Mars and I mean, they got the heavy hitters, and they could use the name recognition to sort of be creative with their business.
right.
But I think everybody's trying to figure out what the next thing is, because I mean, it's hard for like artists that have been around like Britney Spears to look at the paycheck from Spotify and be like, man, what the hell is this? But I think for a lot of newcomers who could figure out how to sort of organize their lives around being constantly creative and inspired, I think it could be something that could be surprising in the future.
Well, years ago, you did like what was big back then, like Kickstarter, like
Oh
GoFundmes
yeah,
and stuff.
Kickstarter, yeah.
Was that a positive experience?
Yeah, I mean, getting the funding was a positive experience, but figuring out how to get all the prizes to the contributors was a nightmare, because they don't have the infrastructure on that website to sort of keep track of who got what or what address they have. You don't even need to submit your address when you submit the money. It's like they thought about collecting the money, but they didn't think about the after part. But obviously, I wouldn't be able to have made some of the music videos I did without Kickstarter. So I'm very thankful that exists. But hopefully,
Yeah, it's almost like a sign of like a time capsule. Like, hey, back in 2014, like this is what you did. You know?
yeah. I mean, I don't. I have you're talking about all this stuff and that I have no perspective on, because I haven't thought about it in a while. It's crazy, man. Like, it's like a lot of stuff has happened.
There was something about you personally that I always thought about interesting. I was reading up about you, and you have this deal with symmetry, and is that still a part of your psyche? Like to relieve anxiety and kind of, is that still a thing?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But I think I have sort of have a nice system for it in my head, if that makes sense. So it's less intrusive, and I try to use it to my advantage.
Well, there was this anime I used to watch, and I think it was like college. It was way back. It was called Soul Eater, where the guy's life was like dependent on symmetry, and if anything was off kilter, it would kind of like mess with his
Is that
brain.
what that's about? I've seen that on Netflix. They have it on Netflix right now, Soul Eater. I didn't know that it was a
Yeah,
thing.
so like his suit has to be like one side's white, one side's black.
Uh huh.
Everything has to be like completely. So it was just like, man, I didn't know like there were people out there that were, I just thought that was like a gimmick, but there are people out there.
Oh, that's
And then
crazy. I gotta watch that now.
yeah, and then I was gonna ask, like, does that bleed over into very meticulous details, like with your music and your production? And I guess it would just go into all facets of your life.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how you live.
I didn't know how involved you were with production, because your latest EP, you gave the reins to Shy Boy,
Yeah.
and um, that had been a hard decision, or maybe it was like I want to take a new direction in my sound with each project I put out. What was kind of the mindset going into that? Because you're very well versed in instrumentation.
Yeah, I think it with both Blue Satellite and Shy Boy, they really helped me come out of a production rut. Um, I've been struggling to sort of understand how to get sort of this. The sound is different now, like the balances are different. It's almost like how people listen to music has changed what the sound necessitates, if that makes sense. It's sort of, we listen to on our phones and laptops all the time. So I think that's one of the reasons why all these rapid hi-hats are really popular. And I don't want to just make a sound that's complies to what the sound is today without understanding it deeply. So I think working with these really incredible producers has really helped me understand their processes and what they do, and why what they feel translates so well into the sound. um, and I've been working on an album for like 2 years now, and after working with these guys, finally some find clicking. um, so yeah, it's been more about collaborating is always great, because when you don't know when you're a little bit stuck, you got that writer's block, you could use someone else's energy to sort of inspire the system again, if that makes sense.
Is it unusual for a music producer to help you co-write the songs too?
I don't know. I think it's different with everyone, but for me, it's like if someone really good at a bunch of stuff, might as well be letting them express themselves fully, I think. Um, so I mean, Shy Boy is an incredible writer and producer. So I was like, man, let's just do make the best thing we possibly can. We were just in a studio for like 3 days, and we finished the whole thing in that time. And it's partly because he's just so multifaceted, and I don't know. It was incredible. It was incredible working with a like mind, if that makes sense.
Well, is that why it took like 19 months longer to finish the previous project that you wanted to finish it in 5 months? It took 2 years. Was that because maybe you didn't surround your well, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I'm just saying you surrounded yourself with Shy Boy, someone that you could meld with really well, and boom, you bang something out in 3 days. Meanwhile, your previous project took a lot longer than anticipated. And I'm hoping that the issue that you experience is something you learn from, and it won't plague you in the future and with future music you make.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, that album I never even put out. I literally made 2 different albums, and I was like, this doesn't sound that great. And now, finally, in the last 2-3 months, I made a whole new album from scratch, and it sounds something I really love. So I don't know. For me, it's like natural selection. You got to make a bunch of bad stuff until it feels good to listen to it like over and over again.
The last thing I'll touch about this, there's another proponent that I found really interesting, and I'm hoping that you can kind of give me some perspective. And I want to talk about how your music is perceived in different parts of the world, no matter if people are looking at it on the laptop or on their cell phones. I saw you try out for American Idol a number of years ago, and Keith Urban said his feedback to your audition was that your voice wasn't enough. Okay, and then I see K-pop, the what was it, the Superstar 7 audition,
Yeah, that's right.
and they compare you to Prince, and then they compare you to Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Same audition, basically. And there seems to be a huge difference in the way music is consumed, listened to, and respected, depending on where you perform in the world. Do you kind of feel that's the case as well?
Everybody has really different tastes, for
Yeah.
sure. But at the same time, the talent base in Korea is much smaller than America. So when they hear a voice like mine, it's not very common. Whereas in America, there's a lot of people trying to sound like Prince, a lot of people trying to sound like Michael Jackson. So you might be a little more desensitized to that. That's one theory. But another thing is, Keith Urban and whoever the judge was on Superstar, the Korean one, like they're 2 different worlds. Like who's this? I like stuff that other people hate, and other people like stuff that I hate. It's like it's all so subjective. It's all with the judges. It's all about whether or not people could watch them and have fun watching them and hear what they say. I miss Simon Cowell. That's all I know.
Keeping it real with people.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a broad question about Knock It Down, the EP.
It's so fun to make and made in 3 days. It was just kind of like an on the fly thing. I was on a road trip across America. My Blue Satellite hit me up and say one of his K-pop producers friends was visiting in Ohio, and we just drove to the middle of nowhere farm in Ohio where he has a really great studio. Just had some laughs, had some fun, and went on some hikes, and we just laid down a little 3-song EP. Just good times. I think that you can just listen to it without thinking. That's the beauty. A lot of my other stuff, it's kind of like a little bit heavy, but it's nice to have this one sort of break the weeds a little bit. I don't know. I love listening to it, and usually I have a hard time listening to my own stuff.
Well, I think people are going to hear this and they're going to sonically recognize that it's different from previous projects. And I think it's really special because you're not just farming for beats and a producer sends it to you and then you sing over it. I think there's like the lost art of spending time with people. I want to work with you on my album. Let's go for a cup of coffee. Let's go hike through the mountains. Let's go fishing. Let's spend some time together. And then when we get into the studio, maybe we can work better on a more human level.
I mean, that's why people get into music in the first place. That process is so fun. There's like almost nothing better. Like it's worth living for almost. Like just spending time with people, getting a connection, and making music together. Like that's definitely a lost art because people just email each other beats here, right? And then just sing over it. And it's just a little bit of the magic is lost. It's a bit of a job at that point.
I'm excited because it seems like we've reconnected a couple years down the line, and you seem to be in a better place musically, and your music is just going to keep getting better and better. Especially, I'm in my 30s now too. I know you're kind of at the cusp. Um,
Oh yeah.
30s are better than your 20s. I'm telling you.
I'm excited. I'm one of those people that overly anxious in my 20s. So I think you're right. I feel like I'm getting a little more grasp of what I wanted to make with my sound. I'm very excited, but I'm excited for you to have this kid though. I mean, like see where that goes with what what it's like having a kid.
Yeah, you know all those corny things you hear about, like how they teach you about life, or you didn't know what love was until you had a kid. Yeah,
Yeah,
all those sappy stuff it's true.
it's
It's an
absolutely
adventure.
true. You're just
Yeah,
like, man,
yeah,
I'm a walking cliche now.
yeah. It's definitely fun. My wife is pretty adamant on her kids being musical, so when
Awesome.
they're old enough to appreciate music, I will definitely introduce them to your music, and who knows, they might be the next superstar.
That'd be awesome. What else are you gonna introduce them? Like the Beatles and like
Um, I have a vinyl collection, and
Oh.
I'm not from the old generation, so there's not so much Sergeant Pepper in there as there is like Notorious B.I.G. stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah, no, that's important.
Yeah. So I would say my collection is about 15% jazz, probably 80% hip hop, 10% rock. So I don't even know if that adds up to 100, but that's kind of where it's kind of divvied up. And I didn't really get an appreciation for jazz until I was in my late 20s, early 30s. So I'm kind of exploring that a little bit. And then what's really crazy is I'll listen to a jazz record or a soul record, and I'll hear a sample, or I'll recognize a sample from a hip hop record that I
No
listened to 10
way.
years
Oh,
ago.
that's cool. 10 years ago, there was a lot of speculation of where music technology was going to go, and it went there. Like that's everything that everybody said was going to happen. Kind of, sort of happened.
Well, the interesting thing is, I know you're a big proponent, same as me, with like vinyl records, where it forces you to sit down in a lazy boy chair and listen from the beginning of an album to the end and really focus on the journey and experience of what the artist intended. But now, like you said, we're in the laptop, we're in the cell phone days of ringtone rap and short attention spans. Have you ever thought about maybe releasing your album on vinyl to kind of bring back that practice of listening to something from the beginning all the way to the end?
Well, I mean, that'd be really cool. I would love that. Um, yeah, this particular album I'm working on, I think would sound very nice on vinyl, because I do use a lot of like older, warmer, crackly samples. Um, and I think that would just double up on a vinyl platform. I think that'd be a really cool idea, especially if I know that there's people who want it. That's the most important thing.
Well, hey, maybe it's like Inception. I planted the seed, and because that's something I would want, and I'm sure your fans would too. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's hard to say because my fans have the demographic has changed massively over the years. Um, I mean, a lot of them are young K-pop fans now too.
Well, how does that work? So, how do you know if you have a revolving door of new fans every 6 months, or you have like the hardcore ones that have been on your journey for, the better part of 7, 8 years? How do you measure that?
I would say there are the hardcore fans that they maybe number the thousands, maybe, um, but they're dwindling because most people over time listen to less music. I think, especially as sort of life catches up, and your focus has become different. So the fans are kind of like the majority of them become the recycled young coming of age people who are the main consumers of music usually, at least vocally on the internet. Um, and those guys are usually just looking for something to make them feel something. Um, but you could see all that in basically like YouTube analytics, Spotify analytics, website analytics. You can just kind of
Yeah,
tell.
it's just like, if you're making a song about love, or you're making a song about, um, insomnia or relationships, I guess when you're crafting a beat and you're crafting lyrics, you're keeping your fan base in mind. So if you're recognizing it's a younger fan base, then I guess you're appealing to them.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the project. Like some things are for me and some things are for them. Like this album, I think is gonna be for me, but I think in the bigger picture, it has a bit of a more of a. It's just you listen to it and it makes you feel a certain way immediately. I don't know. I know that's what all music's supposed to do, but it's there's a very peculiar. I've never been good. I've been very eclectic in my sound, but I've never been good at making a theme. Does that make sense? Like when you think about Lana Del Rey, you think about a certain theme, like Hollywood, dark Hollywood or something, or you think about the Beatles. There's a very certain flavor. You think about Frank Ocean. There's a certain flavor. So I'm trying to craft what my certain flavor as Jhameel is, because I think I've been exploring and discovering this whole time, but I would like to really just hone in on what I want people to recognize my sound as, like just 2-3 adjectives. That'd be really fantastic.
And you're okay with being vulnerable as an artist, since this is a personal project?
Oh, of course. I mean, that's necessary. Nobody wants dishonest work. It's just a waste of time.
Yeah, that was a trick question. You didn't fail it. All right, cool, man. I'm feeling guilty, man, because it's a Sunday, and I want you to enjoy your Sunday.
Oh no, I'm having fun, man. I love conversation like this.
This is great, man. So, maybe you could, come. Like, you're very gracious enough to come on this podcast when it's kind of in its baby form. But I promise you, we're going to stick around, and I would love to have you back sometime. Interview.
Like, you just got to keep at it. I think you're very good.
It's just, I don't have any sponsors, and it's a passion project, and I want that to bleed through. You're making personal music that's genuine and authentic, and that's going to bleed through. Oh. And I'm just trying to get the message out into the world. So that's where everything is authentic. It's beautiful. I think, it'll evolve and it'll get better. And,
are you in Austin?
I am, yeah.
Oh man, I hear there's some amazing food down there.
It's really great, and the music scene's really good too. We have South by Southwest next week. A lot of musical acts are going to come through. So it's like my little slice of California, but
yeah, I mean, Austin's doing great. I hear a lot of great things. It's
good, man. If you ever tour and come out, I'll show you a good time, and maybe we can hang out. And
yeah, it'd be sweet. I hear about there's like a big. I've always wanted. I saw this on like a cooking show. Like there's like a big semi truck, and they have a big slide that we slide down like fried chicken sandwiches.
Yeah, they're crazy with their portable restaurants. Like they have food truck wars and
oh man
and all that. And
I would be all about that.
Thanks again for being here, man. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'll be listening to the podcast. This is a good podcast, I think. Interesting.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm gonna have people from all flavors, and hopefully people can learn a thing or two. And because I'm learning from every interview I do, so it's a good time. A lot of people that I talked to back then, I didn't have the confidence or the authority to probably talk to half of them. So
now you do.
Now I do.